It's 4:30 p.m. here in Seoul. I'm Devin Whiting at the Arirang News Center. We're breaking into our regular programming to bring you the latest briefing from the South Korean health authorities. They'll be updating us on the numbers of infections and so on, as well as other measures. Let's listen in.
So, good afternoon. I am the team leader for the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters. We will be starting the regular briefing now. Today's briefing will be provided by Minister Bang Neung-hoo, the first vice head of the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters. And we also have Minister Yoo Eun-hae from Ministry of Education. We also have Young Ne-son and Jong-Bo Kim present as well. And furthermore, we also have Sang-soo Lee from Ministry of Education and also other people. We will have sign language translation provided as well. First, we will hear from Minister Bang Neung-hoo about the countermeasures against COVID-19. I am the first vice head of the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters, Minister Bang Neung-hoo. As of midnight of August 16th, in Korea, there were 267 additional community spread confirmed cases. And for Seoul and Gyeonggi provinces, the number amounted to 237, so we saw a rapid increase as such. With regards to infection, they were focused on many different areas such as schools, markets, and churches. And we are seeing this spreading to community. For regions as well, we also have areas spreading to outside of the metropolitan area, so we have concerns that this would be a countrywide infection. As of now, we are at the early stage of massive outbreak, so we have to make sure to control this as much as possible, because otherwise we would see a rapid increase in number of patients and it would spread across the country, resulting with a lot of damages. So the government is in recognition of this, and we are providing pan-governmental efforts so that we can control this as soon as possible. For regions where we saw a cluster outbreak, we have sent out task force teams, and we are carrying out epidemiology investigation and carrying out contact tracing as well. And we are caring for self-quarantine by doing so. And in order to prevent further spread, we are making the best of our efforts. In particular, we saw 2 churches with the most number of confirmed cases, and for one of the churches in the Yongin city, we were able to test 600 followers thanks to the cooperation of the church, and we were able to find around 100 patients who are being quarantined. And for Sarang Church in the Seongbuk district, the government is making its best effort to test the followers as much as possible. However, we still have to ask the church and the followers for more cooperation because they're not doing so. Of the list of 4,000 followers that we were able to acquire, we have tested around 800 people and 3,000 people have been quarantined. However, we don't have a full list, and there are some shortages in finding all of the followers, and we weren't able to test everyone as a result of that. We tested 800 followers until yesterday, and around 200 people were confirmed to have COVID-19. So this was around 25%, which is very high in terms of the numbers being tested positive. So we have to test the rest of followers as soon as possible. For COVID-19, the fatality rate is higher for people who are over 70 years old, and it is especially high for people who are over 80 years old at 25%. So we repeatedly want to emphasize this. So for people who have visited these churches, please refrain from going outside and please stay at home to take a rest. There were some people who are violating the rules and not being tested, so this is a big concern. So for Sarang Church, they have some false ideas saying that they shouldn't be tested, but don't believe this. We cannot discriminate against anyone in terms of COVID-19. So if you're not cooperative, then you may be at risk, and you also may be putting your family and community at risk as well. So please remember that. So for the family members and for acquaintances, please make sure to have these people being tested as well. So we have to make sure to get diagnosed and go through epidemiology investigation. And if you were to prevent this and block this, then this is a severe damage to the health of our citizens. So you may be accused and charged if you were to do so. For the 사랑제 Church, they had a gathering yesterday, and we are unable to figure out the full number of members who participated. So this is a very severe situation. So there was a crowd that were crowded, and they had been chanting loudly, and depending on this characteristic, we may see that there is a high risk of further spread. So for people who were at these gatherings, if you are coughing or if you have fever, please make sure to visit the triage centers nearby so that you can be tested. Right now, in metropolitan city, we are seeing an increase in the number of confirmed cases. So we are actually carrying forth a sharing of hospital beds. We still have room in terms of hospital beds, but in consideration of the increase in the number of patients, we are monitoring this continuously. And for the temporary life centers in the metropolitan area, we also have room. And we are going to make sure to have some advanced measures being imposed. We are making the best of our efforts. However, the infection in the metropolitan area is very rapid, so we have to make sure to slow this down. Starting today, we are going to elevate the social distancing status to level 2. So we want to be able to minimize the shock given to our citizens. From today to next 2 weeks, we're going to expand the social distancing measures, and we are recommending facilities and institutions to stop having events or gatherings. And we are also going to stop any gatherings or demonstrations, and we could be strengthening the measures depending on the situation in the future. So please refrain from having any events with more than 100 people participating. So please make sure to delay it, or please make sure to decrease the number of participants while making sure to follow any disease control measures. And if you were to have any confirmed case, then you would have to have some additional measures as well. So with the elevation of social distancing status to level 2, the government is making necessary measures. First, the Ministry of Culture Sports is considering the changes in the social distancing measures and will be delaying the distribution of the coupons. So we're going to stop the distribution from now on, and for the existing distributions, we're going to be allowing it in a limited manner. And in terms of the reservation of accommodations, depending on the situation, we are going to change the number of accommodations as well. And also, for the dine-out activation measure, we're going to stop it for now. And we're going to stop the campaign until now. And we're going to change it depending on the situation as well. And also, for the cultural institutions in Seoul and Gyeonggi province, we're going to open them in a limited manner, depending on the measures provided by the KCDC. So for museums and libraries and etc., we're going to limit the opening to around 30%, and we're going to also have some advanced reservation systems if necessary. Starting from today, for Seoul and Gyeonggi province, the professional sports events will have no spectators. And for other sports events as well, we're going to make sure to have no spectators entering. And for local sports activities, if you were to have it, please make sure to delay it. And if you do have to have it, inevitably, we're going to limit the number of participants as well. And for PC cafes that were newly selected as high-risk facilities, and for other religious facilities as well, we're going to make sure to cooperate together with local governments so that we can have some site monitoring while managing them. Ministry Ministry of Education will be converting some schools to have remote schooling as well. And for the details, Minister of Education will be explaining it very shortly. Dear citizens, as of now, COVID-19 could spread across the country. We are at a very serious crossroads. So this is a very important situation right now. And the situation for the next 2 weeks will actually determine what will happen in terms of COVID-19. Especially, we are seeing the spread in metropolitan areas, so we have to make sure that our citizens cooperate because otherwise we won't be able to control or contain COVID-19. We really need active cooperation of citizens of Seoul and Gyeonggi Province. So for these residents, for the next 2 weeks, please refrain from having gatherings or going out. And please refrain from going outside unless you really have to, such as going to work. So please stay at home as much as possible. After work, please don't make any meetings and please make sure to cancel any family or company dine-outs as well. Right now, we are at a serious situation in terms of COVID-19 spread. So we want to ask you to refrain from visiting crowded places as well. And if you have any respiratory symptoms like coughing or fever, please refrain from going to work. Please call 1339 call center or visit clinics or visit the triage center so that you can get tested as well. So there were some infections due to group meals. So if you have any events with group meals, please make sure to delay them or cancel them. So please refrain from visiting sports facilities. Please make sure to do these sports at home. And please make sure to have online purchases rather than visiting them to have site purchase. So for residents of Seoul and Gyeonggi Province, we ask you not to move to other provinces for another 2 weeks. Right now, we have to have some social distancing measures for ourselves, for our family members, and for our friends. So whoever you meet, wherever you go, please make sure to carry out 2-meter social distancing. So for the past 7 months, we tried to overcome COVID-19 and we overcame many different crises. We believe that this will not be different as well. The government and the citizens should come together to make a concerted effort. And if we were to do so, we were able to wisely overcome COVID-19 as we have done before. And we have to remember this. So based on the previous experiences, the government will also strive hard to overcome this crisis. We ask our citizens to cooperate as well. Thank you. So next we will hear from Minister Yu from Ministry of Education in terms of schooling. So I am Minister of Education and Hye-yu. Right now, with the focus on metropolitan area, we saw a rapid increase on the number of COVID-19 confirmed cases. And we believe many parents and students would be concerned about the school life as well. Right now, we are at a difficult situation once again, and it is true. However, until now, our teachers, parents, and students and the education institutions believed in one another and strived hard to do their best. And as you have done so until now, if you were to do so in the future as well, we will be able to overcome this crisis. On top of Ministry of Education, other ministries will also cooperate. And in the second semester as well, as we have done in the first semester, we are going to do our best to provide continuous education to our students. Respected citizens and personnel from the Education Ministry, the Ministry of Education will be following the social distancing status being elevated to level 2. And now I will let you know about the plans for the second semester school lessons as well, and this was in cooperation with KCDCs and many institutions related to education. And this is actually reflecting the plan that we have announced in July. So first, for Seoul and Gyeonggi provinces, as the social distance status is being elevated to level 2, there will be some changes. So for Seoul and Gyeonggi province, we're going to minimize any crowding in schools. So for kindergartens and primary elementary schools and middle schools, we're going to minimize the number of students to 1/3 of the previous number. And for high schools, we're going to decrease the number to 2/3 of the number of students. And for the elevated social distance status, this will actually start being applied to schools in August 18th. So in consideration of 2 weeks of the monitoring period, we're going to carry this out until September 19th, and afterwards we're going to make some adjustments, and this will depend on the status of COVID-19 at the time. For Incheon City as well, we will have a similar measure being imposed because it is in the same lifestyle as Seoul and Gyeonggi province. So we are also applying the same social distancing status of level 2. So this was the measure for Seoul, Gyeonggi, and the Incheon City. And on top of these, we have some other high-risk areas with cluster outbreaks. So we're going to have some advanced measures being taken. For Gangbuk province and for the Yangpyeong-gun and Yongin City of the Gyeonggi province, from August 18th to September 19th, we're going to have all of the schools going through the lessons through remote schooling. And we also recommend other schools to actually stop operating for some time. And also there are areas such as Busan where we have some concerns about spread. So for 320 schools as well, starting from August 18th until 20th, we're going to have remote schooling there as well. Also, for the 14 other areas, the measures will be as follows. So for 14 areas other than the metropolitan areas, depending on the changes that we make to the changes that we made in the first semester, we have to make sure that the number is limited to 2/3 of the number of students. And this will be applied to the general school system as well. And as it was done for the metropolitan area, this will be applied until September 11th. And starting on the 3rd week of September, we're going to change the measures depending on the status of COVID-19 at the time in cooperation with other institutions. Respect to citizens. So we are seeing a rapid increase of confirmed cases in Seoul and Gyeonggi province, and we have to make sure that this does not spread to other areas in the country. So we really need your cooperation during the long weekend, and we are in desperate need of your cooperation as well. So please make sure refrain from visiting any closed and confined spaces, and please make sure that you guide your students to do so as well. And also, please make sure that our students refrain from visiting multi-use facilities such as singing rooms. So please make sure to provide such guidance. Ministry of Education is cooperating with other institutions to strengthen the measures taken for the second semester. In the second semester as well, we're going to be providing additional protective gears, and for around 5 million students across the country, we're going to provide the influenza vaccines, and we're going to have some advanced measures taken. On August 11th, we announced the Safe Grid network for our students. So as we have announced, we're going to be providing support for our students. And the focus of this policy is as follows. So it is to shorten any gaps that we can have in terms of schoolings, and we are also trying to provide as much care to our students as possible for our parents. So we're going to come up with a safe network And with the elevation of social distancing status to level 2, we are also going to provide some support for any private institutions and for universities. And we're also going to be providing support for students coming in from abroad. So with the elevation of social distancing, we're going to be limiting private institutions from operating. So this does not only apply to students when those with more than 300 students, but also to those with less than 300 students as well. And they also have to make sure to follow the disease control measures. And if this were to be violated, then the local government will be severely imposing measures and fines. So we have the electronic record system that has also been installed. So we're going to be managing this in a continuous manner. And we're going to be monitoring private institutions by doing so. And for the students from abroad who are entering Seoul and Gyeonggi province, we are strengthening measures for them as well. So we have the experience in June of managing students entering in from China as well. So based on this experience, we're going to be managing the entry points of these students coming in from abroad. And we're also going to make sure that they go through the self-quarantine measures of 14 days. And on top of that, until the situation is becoming stabilized, we are recommending remote courses for universities, and we're going to be supporting any measures that are necessary. Respected citizens, in whatever situation we are, we have to make sure to provide a safe education environment for our students, and the government will do its best to do so. Thank you.
And that'll conclude our coverage of this briefing. Thank you for watching. Arirang News will be back at 6 o'clock p.m. Korea time. Bye for now.
According to a 2019 survey, 1 in 4 households in Korea has a pet. As the COVID-19 pandemic persists, there's a growing concern about pets' health.